A young woman moves back to her hometown in hopes of a fresh start.
She finds an old friend that has an apartment and a place to stay.
She seemed to be much happier when I talked to her on the phone.
But the happy homecoming ends in tragedy.
The body in the apartment was charred to the point where they really couldn't see a face.
You don't think anything bad gonna happen, especially to a quiet person that, everybody likes.
And when the search for answers opens a Pandora's box of secrets, the police are left with no shortage of suspects.
She was responding to an ad she'd placed on Craigslist.
There could have been multiple men in there that evening.
And any one of them could be her killer.
Just when detectives think they have this case figured out, it takes a turn that no one saw coming.
August 10th, 2008, Sacramento, California. It's just after 2 a.m., a time most people are still fast asleep. But at Tamron Ranch Apartments on the north side of town, all hell is about to break loose.
A person who had lived inside the complex had called the police reporting a fire on the premises.
The person on the line was extremely concerned, and they were urging the firefighters to get there as soon as possible.
First responders arrive moments later and find the apartment complex in a state of chaos.
When the firemen get there, they see smoke billowing out of a second-floor window. And people were scared. They were running out into the street.
Grabbing their gear, firefighters race upstairs.
Right through here, right through here.
They kicked the door in.
They wanted to make sure that no one was still trapped inside.
The firefighters make their way through the smoke towards the source of the flames.
The fire was contained solely to one of the bedrooms in the apartment.
However, once the firefighters quell the blaze, they make a gruesome discovery.
They discovered the body of a female who was face down on the floor.
The victim had been badly burned.
But did she die in the fire?
They had discovered a USB cord wrapped around the neck of the victim.
This could possibly be a homicide.
As firefighters make their way back downstairs, major crimes detectives arrive on the scene.
Of course, we didn't know who the victim was. We were attempting to determine the name of the victim.
As first responders get detectives up to speed, an anxious young woman approaches them.
Is this your apartment?
Yeah, what's going on?
I regret to inform you that we found a deceased woman in your apartment.
Alicia? Oh my God.
Who's Alicia?
My roommate.
Sacramento native Alicia Ray was a shy and thoughtful young woman.
She wasn't what you would consider a social butterfly. She was very much to herself and very quiet sometimes. She could be in the house and you would never know she was in the house.
Mostly because Alicia was often lost in her own little world.
You can catch her in the room writing on a pad. She just loved poetry. She just really did.
She had won some kind of award or got a certain poem published.
She sees things differently, kind of like a free spirit. And you could see that in her personality. Just real creative and artistic.
Like many successful poets, Alicia drew inspiration from personal tragedy. During her teenage years, Alicia's parents divorced, and in the process revealed a devastating family secret.
Her dad was not her biological father.
I was with Alicia's father probably a couple of years. No, that was about it.
Alicia was so young when her father left, and Alicia's mother thought it would be best to just tell Alicia that the stepfather was her biological father.
It was only when her parents split up that Alicia learned the truth.
Hey, sweetie. I just wanted to come and check on you.
Why didn't you tell me this before?
Honey, I'm sorry. But if you want to talk, we can talk.
I feel like my whole life has been a lie.
We kind of just let it be, which was a mistake.
As one might imagine, to find out that your father's not actually your father, Alicia took that news really hard.
Alicia poured all the pain and confusion she felt into her poetry, and this shy, demure young woman morphed into a fiercely independent, some might say defiant individual.
She wrote about a lot of deep and dark things to express herself to where you would feel it too.
Writing wasn't Alicia's only coping mechanism, though.
Alicia got into drugs, maybe drinking at one point, probably in her late or mid-teenage years.
She fell in with the wrong crowd.
Alicia's older brother tried to warn her.
I was always the person that's telling her, like, hey, it's not for you, you gotta watch yourself. I always tell her, like, the streets are not for everyone. It'll chew you up and spit you out real fast.
Alicia ignored the advice. Throughout high school, she continued to experiment with drugs and also started dating.
She started spending time with a man named Jose Duarte. He was well known as the neighborhood bad boy.
Jose was not the sweetest angel on the planet. He had a bit of a rap sheet.
Alicia and Jose met at a friend's house. They were just hanging out with mutual friends and hit it off.
Hey.
Hey.
Thought I'd see you here. Are you good on your drink?
I just ran out, actually.
Well, lucky for you. I bought you one.
Thank you.
There was an attraction between them from the beginning.
Alicia and Jose had a very casual sexual relationship.
They enjoyed each other's company. They liked to party. They liked to hook up.
You want to get out here for a bit?
I can't. It's getting late. My mom is going to kill me.
Your mom's gonna kill you?
Yeah.
As a mother, it's hard because it's like you're thinking, why are you behaving like this?
I didn't think my sister was mature enough just to be out there, just hanging out like she would be.
However, Alicia wouldn't be hanging out for long. Alicia's mother was desperate to extricate her daughter from this increasingly bad situation. So in 2007, her mother moved the family to Plano, Texas.
Well, she was 18, but then Alicia didn't have any means to support herself.
She's not having a job or anything, so like she gotta come.
While in Texas, Alicia made it clear that she wasn't happy about leaving her old life behind.
Hey guys, what do we want for dinner?
Nothing. I'm not hungry. Just leave me alone.
She was more moodier. She would spend more time locked in her room.
She would give my mother a hard time because she's not around her friends.
There was a lot of tension that was going on in the house.
In the summer of 2008, Alicia, now 20, decided she was going to move back to Sacramento.
She wanted to pursue her art and wanted to do greater things because she knew she was talented.
Her friends were in Sacramento and the art and poetry scene was just thriving more. She wanted to go back and be with her friends.
She did have a plan. She had a friend that she was going to stay with.
Alicia's mom was so afraid she'd get involved with the wrong crowd again, so she went to go talk with the church pastor about it.
The pastor was saying, maybe it's time it's time for you just to, you need to let her go and let God deal with it.
Though hesitant, Alicia's mother gave her daughter her blessing to leave. But Alicia and her mother would never see each other again. Barely a month after moving back to Sacramento, firefighters find her body inside the flame-gutted apartment she shared with Stacy.
When you hear something like that, it makes you think like tragedies are real.
But as they sift through the ashes, fire marshals make a startling discovery.
She was in a very unnatural position. It was a serious indication that there was foul play.
This was the work of a sexual predator.
After a tumultuous year in Texas, 20-year-old California transplant Alicia Ray made the decision to leave her family behind and head back to native Sacramento.
Alicia was trying to find a job. She was looking for work.
She was living with one of her friends, Stacy. She was really passionate about pursuing her interest in poetry and the arts.
But on August 10th, 2008, after barely a month in town, it appears that Alicia's homecoming has ended in tragedy.
Early that morning, there was a fire in the apartment where Alicia had been staying.
When the fire department went into one of the bedrooms, they realized that there was an actual body on the floor. Stacy had told us that her roommate, Alicia, was supposed to be in the apartment that evening.
On the half-charred body, firefighters make a discovery that seemingly confirms the victim's identity.
Police did find a pocketbook with Alicia Ray's ID inside, which would indicate further that the victim was in fact Alicia Ray.
Though the wallet is entered into evidence, it will be up to the coroner to formally identify Alicia's body. And as the firefighters begin sorting through the debris, they uncover evidence that suggests foul play.
They could see that this victim had what appeared to be some type of ligature around their neck. This was most likely a homicide.
But who would want to kill Alicia, and why? To help answer that question, investigators turned to her roommate, Stacy.
Stacy actually showed up at the scene.
Do you know of anyone that would want to harm Alicia?
No, why are you asking me that?
We have reason to believe that she was murdered.
Oh my God.
We'd like for you to come with us, ma'am.
While a patrol officer takes down Alicia's roommate's initial statement, Detectives ask fire marshals to pace them through the evidence.
The bed was set on fire, and that's what started the fire burning. And then as the fire increased, more and more items started to burn, including that of the victim's body.
And when was it set?
Well, the call came in at a little before 2 a.m., and it looks like about a 15-minute burn, so I'm guessing it started around 1:45.
In addition to when the fire started, investigators offer up their theory on why it was set.
It was definitely our opinion that the fire was set as a means of covering up the crime.
But is homicide the only crime the arsonist was trying to cover up?
The body was found in a very unnatural position. Her face was down on the floor, her hips were up in the air.
I have to say that my first thought was she was in a sexual position. Could this have been a random stranger attack who came in, either raped or somehow other sexually assaulted this individual and then killed them and then tried to cover up his tracks by setting the place on fire?
Investigators ruled out robbery as a motive because many items of value were left in the apartment, including a laptop computer.
At that point, we didn't know if she died because of smoke inhalation or if it was strangulation or if even there were other injuries that we weren't aware of.
As the medical examiner prepares to transport the body to the morgue, he makes another equally surprising discovery.
When they had examined the crime scene, they had found a used condom in the ashes near the body. A second condom was found in the kitchen wrapped in a paper towel.
Those were collected and booked as evidence because they were very important items of evidence. And the hope was that we would be able to obtain DNA from either of those condoms.
However, the DNA analysis will take time. In the interim, investigators turn back to Alicia's roommate, Stacy.
We really had no idea who the suspect could have been. We didn't know what transpired. We didn't know anything about Alicia Ray. And our investigation was really just a fact-finding mission at that point.
How long has Alicia been living with you?
About 3 weeks. She just moved back from Texas.
Alicia was having a hard time finding a job and finding someone to live with and kind of settling in. And it seemed to me that Stacy was a very caring type of person. And so she had suggested that Alicia could move in with her.
And when is the last time that you saw her?
Around 9 when I was leaving the apartment.
Is that the last time you spoke with her?
No. Around 10:30, she sent me a message asking if she could have a guy over.
Do you know who this guy may have been?
Could have been Jose.
She told us that Alicia was dating a guy by the name of Jose Duarte.
Stacy explained that Jose and Alicia had dated in high school. And when she moved back from Texas, they were able to reconnect.
He was known as a bad boy and a part of the crowd her mom didn't want her to fall back in with when she moved back to Sacramento.
According to Stacy, Alicia and Jose's current arrangement is more of a friends with benefits situation.
They would just hang out very casually, hooking up on occasion.
She talks to other guys, but he's the only one I've met.
Do you know how we can contact him?
I think I have a friend that has his number.
Detectives contact Jose, and he agrees to meet them at the station that morning.
They were hoping that Jose could help establish a timeline.
We were just hoping to get any type of information that we could get from Jose regarding who Alicia was friends with, maybe who she was dating, some type of lifestyle questions that might help us figure out what happened that night.
We'd like to ask you a few questions about Alicia.
Is she in some kind of trouble?
We believe she died in a fire last night.
What?
We started to talk with him about how he knew Alicia, just trying to get some background on his relationship with her and what he knew about her.
We dated a little back in high school, but I hadn't talked to her in years. Not until a few weeks ago when she moved back to Sacramento.
She contacted him when she moved back to Sacramento. They met up, and it sounded like pretty much right away they started to have a sexual relationship with each other.
So when was the last time you spoke to Alicia?
Last night.
Jose told us that he was working on the night that the fire was set. He stated that he worked until maybe around 10:30 or 11 o'clock, somewhere in there. He says that when he left work, he took the light rail to Alicia's house because they had had an agreement that he was going to meet with her. He wasn't expecting that it was going to be an overnight thing. He was expecting it to be a quick sexual encounter.
Were you guys serious?
I mean, just casual. You know, I have a girlfriend.
Jose explained that he had a serious girlfriend, Andrea, and they had a child together.
But Alicia was someone that he still wanted to have a relationship with, see from time to time.
Did you all have sex last night?
Yes, sir.
How many times?
Just once.
Jose explains to police that he and Alicia did have sex that evening and that they did use a condom.
So that's why there was at least one of the condoms that was present at the scene.
He wasn't clear exactly what happened to the condom, but he knew that it was probably still in the apartment because he didn't take it with him.
And you used just one condom?
Yes, sir.
So now police are wondering, where did the second one come from?
What time did you leave?
A little before midnight.
He said that he leaves her apartment and calls his mom for a ride home, and his mom picks him up at the apartment complex.
Jose seems to be telling the truth. And with the forensic analysis of the condoms still in the works, detectives have no reason to hold him.
We knew that the fire probably started somewhere around 2 o'clock in the morning because that was when fire got dispatched. So we did not think he was a suspect, just a witness that really could help steer us in the right direction.
But before they let him go, Jose raises an intriguing possibility.
Does your girlfriend know about Alicia?
Yeah.
Apparently, she looked on Jose's phone, found some kind of communication, and figured out that he was seeing somebody else.
Learning this, police wondered if Andrea could have a motive for murdering Alicia.
It's entirely possible after Jose left the house with his mother, his girlfriend went in and choked Alicia while she slept, then staged it to make it look like a sex crime.
But even as detectives turn their attention to Jose's girlfriend, forensic evidence will add another possible suspect into the mix.
There had to have been someone else in the apartment.
This new finding really was astonishing to police, but at the same time, it opened up the scope of suspects.
We just had no idea how many people could have been over there.
It's been mere hours since Sacramento firefighters discovered the badly burned remains of a 20-year-old African-American female.
Her hips were sort of up in the air, and it was just a very unnatural position. The ligature around the neck was especially suspicious to us that something had happened here other than just a fire.
It appeared she may have been choked, either during or after sex.
Investigators had learned from the woman who lived at the apartment that the body was likely that of her roommate, Alicia Ray. They even found Alicia's ID, but because of the condition of the body, the medical examiner had to contact her family for dental records.
Though it's likely just a formality, the coroner's request gives the family faint hope.
During the whole time, I'm still hoping that it wasn't her, that it was someone else.
Investigators have already placed Alicia's on-again, off-again boyfriend, Jose Duarte, at Alicia's apartment the night of the murder. But Jose's cooperation with police, along with his denial of wrongdoing, seems genuine.
Jose claimed his mother picked him up at Alicia's apartment shortly before midnight. Now, this would have been about 2 hours prior to the murder.
However, that's not the only useful information investigators glean from Jose's statement.
Jose tells us that his girlfriend with whom he has a child, Andrea Hutchins, found out about Alicia.
Jose explained that Andrea was none too happy about his relationship with Alicia.
Andrea knew that Alicia was still in the picture. She had accused Jose at other times of being with that chick, those types of statements.
According to Jose, Andrea had even threatened Alicia.
No.
You know what, I'm not...
I am sick of this. If you don't end this, I will. I swear.
Andrea, at some point, contacts Alicia and says, "You better stay away from him. That's my boyfriend," and challenges her to a fight, really, if she doesn't stay away from her man.
After speaking with Jose, detectives reach out to Andrea and ask her to come in for questioning. But before her interview, they received news from the medical examiner's office.
We did have a confirmation that it was Alicia Ray's body that was found in there.
It's her. It's my sister. They got it on the news. That was like the worst day of my life.
When you finally get the answers, you lose something inside of yourself, and you really lose a part of you. You feel like you're trapped in a dream that like, this is not happening. I'm going to wake up, and everything is going to be normal.
The autopsy also determines Alicia's cause of death.
The coroner was able to tell us that Alicia was dead prior to the fire being set and that the cause of death was strangulation. Medical examiners can determine if a body was alive or dead before or after a fire simply because of the amount of smoke that might be located in the lungs.
When the coroner examined the body, he had found that the lungs inside were pink and quite healthy. This would indicate that she was not breathing during the time of the fire.
There were no other injuries on her body that indicated that there was any other type of crime that had been committed toward her, such as bludgeoning or gunshot wounds or stabbing or anything of that nature. So it was pretty clear that strangulation was the manner by which she was killed.
Strangulation is a very personal method of attack, which suggests that the killer either knew Alicia or had a reason to harbor serious hatred toward her.
Which brings detectives back to Jose Duarte's girlfriend and baby mama, Andrea Hutchins. That afternoon, they begin their interview with her. To detectives' surprise, Andrea doesn't hold back about her feelings toward Alicia.
Andrea was shocked and hurt to learn that Jose was cheating on her with Alicia.
I told her to stay away from him or else.
There was definitely a lot of contention there with that triangle because Jose, of course, didn't want Andrea to know he was seeing Alicia, but at the same time, Jose didn't want to stop seeing Alicia, and he wasn't willing to give her up simply because he had a girlfriend and a baby at home. He was just trying to make things more convenient for him and see her when time allowed and still kind of have the best of both worlds.
And did you know that he was at her apartment last night?
He was.
Andrea was very shocked to learn that Jose was still cheating on her with Alicia.
It's awkward, of course.
Where were you last night?
I took my baby to my aunt's house. We stayed the night there.
When detectives followed up with Andrea's family, they confirmed her alibi. Andrea Hutchins had the motive to murder Alicia, but she didn't have the opportunity.
Investigators also looked into Andrea's background, but they couldn't really find anyone who might have committed this crime on her behalf.
But if Andrea Hutchins didn't kill Alicia, who did?
The strangulation suggested this was a crime of passion, and even though Jose said he was at his mom's house, there was nobody that was more passionate about Alicia than Jose Duarte.
After speaking with Andrea, detectives reach out to Jose's mother in order to verify his alibi. While waiting to hear back from her, they received the forensics report from the lab on the condoms collected at the scene.
Typically, you're going to get some type of DNA from condoms. And knowing that there was potential for DNA evidence was huge.
Unfortunately, the test results on the first condom are disappointing.
We were not able to get any DNA evidence from the condom underneath the victim's body. It had been destroyed because of the heat.
There was a second condom retrieved from the kitchen wrapped in a paper towel.
But the results for the second condom only lead to more questions.
We got some type of fluid from that condom. However, no sperm was present, so we weren't able to get a DNA match and be able to say definitively who that condom belonged to.
Though it contained no useful DNA evidence, the bodily fluid found in the second condom did say something really important about the person who used it.
The person who had used that condom was infertile.
Which, on the surface, appears to once again rule out Jose Duarte as a suspect.
Since Jose Duarte has a child, he can't possibly be the person who used the second condom that evening, and there's still a second person to account for on the night of the murder.
But if Alicia had another visitor that evening, who could he be? Later that day, one of Alicia's neighbors comes forward with some new information.
The downstairs neighbor told us that at about 12:30 at night, there was a knock on his door.
The neighbor states that the man at the door was one Jason Gant, the ex-boyfriend of Stacy.
According to the neighbors downstairs, Jason and Stacy had a falling out, and they left each other on bad terms.
They'd actually broken up, Jason and Stacy, about 6 months earlier.
Police can't help but wonder, is Jason's presence at the apartment complex the night of the murder merely a coincidence? Or does it make him a possible suspect?
If he hasn't been by in 6 months and they aren't talking, why would he show up that day?
Less than 24 hours after Alicia Ray was murdered in her Sacramento apartment, police have a new lead on a possible suspect. Her roommate's ex-boyfriend, Jason Gant.
The night Alicia died, Jason had stopped by a neighboring apartment in the complex.
The fact that Stacy and Jason were not on good terms caused the police to question what he was doing there in the first place.
It was a really odd coincidence that on the night Stacy's apartment caught fire, this guy just happens to show up randomly and really for no reason.
The downstairs neighbor tells police that he essentially wondered the same thing.
He was surprised to see him because Jason didn't live there anymore. And they just talked for a few minutes and he left. The neighbor had the impression that there was a car waiting for Jason outside because he could see the headlights were illuminating some of the shrubbery in front of his apartment. And so it was his impression that Jason left and got into that car and then drove away.
Hoping to learn more, detectives bring in Alicia's roommate Stacy for another round of questioning.
Stacy had already given an official statement, but detectives were curious what she had to say about Jason Gant.
Stacy told us that he was not paying rent and she got fed up with it, so she took his Converse shoes. That made him angry, so when he moved out, he stole her PlayStation, and that Jason had at some point threatened to kick her butt.
Had Jason shown up that night, planning to make good on his threat?
Maybe when Jason went to talk to Stacy and Alicia said she wasn't there, Jason didn't believe her, and things could have escalated from there.
That made us start thinking, okay, we need to talk with him.
When investigators hauled Jason in for questioning that morning, he doesn't deny being at the apartment complex the night Alicia died.
He tells us, yes, I did go over there. I was in the neighborhood with 2 other friends. We were driving around. I thought it would be funny to just go by Stacy's house.
What do you mean by funny?
I like riling her up.
Like intimidating her?
Whatever, man. It didn't happen anyway.
He said Stacy's car was not parked there, so I knew she wasn't home. He said the lights were off, and so he said instead I decided to go down to her neighbor right below the apartment and talk with him because Jason had been friends with this neighbor.
And you left right after that?
Yeah. We went to go get something to eat. It was about 1 o'clock.
According to Jason, he and his friends hit the drive-thru at a fast food restaurant on their way home.
To verify Jason's alibi, detectives pull the surveillance footage from the restaurant in question.
Surveillance footage confirmed his whereabouts as not being on site at the time of the murder.
We were able to rule him out as a potential suspect based on the videotape. The other 2 people that were with Jason that night, they both corroborated Jason's story as well. Yeah, we were in the neighborhood. Jason said, oh, I used to know somebody who lives over here. Let's stop and I'll say hi.
With Jason ruled out, the identity of the second man in Alicia's apartment the night of the murder remains a mystery. That afternoon, CSIs inform them of a potentially game-changing piece of evidence they've unearthed on Alicia's laptop.
At the scene, whatever types of electronic devices were located and collected by CSI, those items, the electronic items, would have been processed.
You're gonna want to see this.
What is it?
Forensics. From the victim's laptop.
What the computer techs uncover takes investigators completely by surprise.
That Alicia was working as an escort.
My first thought when we found that out, that she was having men over to the house and was making money in that way, was, oh my gosh, we could have a litany of potential suspects here.
But a thorough search of Alicia's emails quickly narrows down the list of possible suspects.
By way of search warrant, we were able to determine who that person was.
Alicia had set up a meeting that night with a client, a man named Randy Addis. Now, he was supposed to show up at about midnight. That would have been about an hour and 45 minutes before the fire started.
Later that afternoon, detectives bring Randy Addis in for questioning.
Randy was obviously nervous.
Does the name Alicia Ray ring a bell?
Yeah.
Randy Addis told us that he saw Alicia's ad on Craigslist and he responded.
Am I being booked for solicitation?
Actually, no, we're investigating Ms. Ray's murder.
What?
Once he finds out that this is regarding a homicide investigation, then he becomes even more concerned about his implication in it. He said that his plan was to be over at her house about midnight, which is when she had asked him to arrive. And she met him at the door. He sat down on the couch and she did a strip for him.
He paid Alicia $40 for a lap dance and then another $40 for a sexual favor.
He stated that he brought his own condom, that once the condom had been used, that Alicia then took a napkin, put the condom in the napkin.
Randy's description matches the condom that CSIs found in the kitchen, but that's not all.
We also learned that Randy Addis had lymphoma, and because of that treatment, he was sterile, which corroborates the fact that there was no sperm found in the condom.
What time did you leave Alicia's?
It was about 12:30.
He told us that he had been finding girls to date online for about the last 6 or 8 months. He had been engaging in this type of activity in the past. It was just one of those very strange and unfortunate incidents that he happened to meet up with Alicia on the same night that she was killed. He comes across very honest, and he comes across very detailed about what happened.
Still, Randy's statement suggests he was the last person to see Alicia alive, so police detain him until they can dig a little deeper into his past.
And there was no indication that he had a criminal history at all.
Since police didn't have enough evidence to connect Randy to the crime, they let him go for the moment, but he remained a suspect.
In an effort to corroborate Randy's statement, detectives subpoena both his and Alicia's phone records.
We wrote search warrants for Alicia's phone number, also for Randy Addis's phone, so that we could determine a timeline.
In addition, detectives pull phone records for Alicia's lover, Jose Duarte.
Detectives have been unable to verify Jose's alibi at that time, so he was still on their radar.
And when these records come to light, they will expose an even darker side to this tragic case.
The police were now curious if Jose Duarte knew that Alicia was working as a sex worker.
Police wondered if Alicia becoming an escort had made Jose jealous or angry, even angry enough to kill.
August 2008, detectives investigating the murder of Alicia Ray have learned that the 20-year-old was living a secret life.
Once she had moved back to Sacramento on her own, Alicia had been supporting herself by working as an escort.
Alicia's family knew she was struggling to get a steady job, but she had a roof over her head. She seemed happy. This whole escort thing came out of the blue to them.
I didn't know until later on down the line, and I don't think the person deserved to lose their life over something like that. But a little part of me was a little disappointed too.
The revelation that Alicia was working as an escort has led police to a new prime suspect, her last scheduled client, Randy Addis. But when detectives look into Randy's background, nothing jumps out.
There was no indication that he had a criminal history.
Nevertheless, investigators subpoena Randy and Alicia's phone records in order to verify his statement. Until that subpoena is granted, they focus their attention on the other man who'd been with Alicia that night, Jose Duarte.
Jose admitted to having sex with Alicia the night of the murder, but described their relationship as a casual hookup. But now the police are wondering if he was actually a client or if he even knew she was an escort.
On August 12th, detectives bring Jose in for a second round of questions.
When police questioned Jose about it, he said that he knew that she was working as a prostitute.
He tells us that she's looking for a sugar daddy and that she's pretty open with him about her business.
And you were okay with that?
People gotta do what they gotta do.
He didn't seem to be that bothered by it. He was very open about the fact that he knew she had clients, and he kind of acted as if that was just part of their relationship, and he was okay with what she was doing in order to make ends meet.
So you knew she had a client over to her apartment that night?
Yeah, that's why I left.
She had a window where Jose kind of could fit in. He could come over, they could spend time together. And he said that was okay with him.
And what time did you leave again?
Like I said before, it was a little before midnight. I called my mom and she gave me a lift.
We're having a difficult time verifying your alibi.
That's how it was. I swear I'm telling all the truth.
But no sooner has Jose uttered those words than police receive word that their subpoena is approved, and the phone records for Jose, Alicia, and Randy Addis are now available for examination.
Since Jose was there with them, they looked at his records first, which did not corroborate his alibi. In fact, they did quite the opposite.
Between about 3 minutes after midnight, all the way up until about 3 minutes before 2 a.m. Jose Duarte's cell phone is pinging off of a cell tower that's only about a quarter mile away from Alicia Ray's apartment.
He was at the apartment the entire night, right until the time of the fire.
He called his mom right around 1:45, 1:50 in the morning, which would have been just prior to fire getting the call that there was a fire in the apartment.
Well, your phone records indicate that you're not being completely honest with us.
Okay? Okay, I was there. But I swear I didn't kill her.
It was at that point that he said, I didn't cause her death, but I did watch her being killed.
Jose admitted that after he left Alicia's apartment, he didn't actually leave the complex right away. He hung out for a while.
In fact, he tells us that he actually saw her next client coming to her apartment. He saw a vehicle pull up. He sees the vehicle park at the base of the stairwell. Then a man gets out of the vehicle and he walks up to Alicia's apartment.
He said that once the man went back into Alicia's apartment, he quietly slipped back into the apartment too.
What did you go back for?
I wanted to watch.
But Jose tells police that he'd gotten more than he'd bargained for.
He went into the hallway. He could look into the bedroom from where he was, and he could see that the client was strangling her.
Dude was killing her.
What did you do?
I ran.
He doesn't call 911. He doesn't check to see if she's alive. Instead, he leaves the apartment. He stated that, in his words, he was a coward.
Knowing what they know about Alicia's sole client that evening, detectives aren't sure what to make of Jose's story.
Randy Addis was the only person she was expecting over there.
Randy had been known by other escorts, and he was known in those circles as a frequent client, but he had never been violent.
Police ask Jose if he can describe the alleged attacker, but Jose draws a blank.
Somehow, Jose isn't able to give a description of this client. He says that he didn't get a very clear view of him.
With Jose's story in question, the fate of the case comes down to one thing and one thing only: Randy Addis's phone records.
It was either Randy or Jose, and those phone records held the key to the case.
Once Randy's phone records came in, police knew who the killer was.
It's been 2 days since the murder of 20-year-old Alicia Ray, and her lover, Jose Duarte, has just made an important revelation.
Jose was at the scene of the crime outside while Alicia's next client was inside the apartment.
Jose told police they went up to check on Alicia. At this point, he says that he saw the client strangling Alicia and that he ran away in fear of his life.
Based on email records that we found in Alicia Ray's account, she did not have any other clients booked for that night. Randy Addis was the only person she was expecting over there, and of course, Jose Duarte.
Though Jose's account of the attack suggests Randy is the killer, there's something that doesn't sit right with detectives.
He was there and saw it happen and did nothing. That was very hard for us to believe.
Thankfully, investigators have received Randy's cell phone records to divulge the truth.
We're able to determine, based on what he tells us and his cell phone records, that in fact he did show up at Alicia's house when he said he was there, and is gone from her house well before the fire is started.
There's no way Randy Addis could be the killer.
Detectives confront Jose with their findings.
You were the only one there at the time of her death.
That's when I think the heat kind of got turned up on him a little too much, and he decided that he didn't want to talk anymore. And so at this point, he asked for an attorney.
Evidence against Jose starts to pile up, and this prompts police to place him under arrest for Alicia's murder.
In addition to Alicia's murder, Jose was charged with arson for setting fire to the apartment in an attempt to destroy evidence.
For Alicia's family, Jose's arrest comes as a relief.
I was thankful. I was relieved that the arrest was made.
I felt a little bit of a small closure because I really knew who did that.
In June of 2011, Jose's trial gets underway. To help solidify their case, prosecutors introduced some additional cell phone records, namely a series of text messages between Alicia and Jose in the weeks leading up to her death.
The text messages revealed that he was trying to set himself up as her pimp.
Others indicated that it was Jose that suggested Alicia become an escort.
He was telling her where to post ads and how, and trying to get her to solicit more clients.
She's this young woman. She's moved away from her family. She's all alone, and she really needed somebody to kind of fill that void of love.
This young man took advantage of that.
However, based on the texts, Jose hadn't planned for Alicia's fierce independence streak.
Alicia kind of did her own thing, and I don't think that he necessarily liked that. I think that he kind of wanted to keep Alicia on her and keep her under control to a certain degree. So some of those emails or text messages back and forth were somewhat threatening in nature.
Telling her that she had better stop disrespecting him or else he will beat her ass.
And on the night of August 10th, 2008, Jose decided to make good on that threat.
In my opinion, he was angry that he had to schedule his time with her and that he had to be squeezed in amongst her other appointments. And I think that really bothered him. And I think ultimately things just started to unravel for him. And if he couldn't control her and have her in the way that he wanted her, then he was going to make sure that nobody else had her either.
Based on the evidence at the scene, prosecutors believe that once Randy left, Jose entered Alicia's apartment a second time. He pretended everything was fine and struck when Alicia was most vulnerable.
My belief is that he was, in fact, having sex with Alicia Ray, that he was behind her during the sexual act, and I believe that during that act is when he actually strangled her.
Prosecutors assert that before he left, Jose set Alicia's bedroom on fire, destroying most of the evidence connecting him to the crime.
However, prosecutors did have cell phone data that put him at the scene of the crime right up until the fire began.
On June 3rd, 2011, the jury finds Jose Duarte guilty of first-degree murder and arson. He is sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 34 years.
Getting a guilty verdict was extremely satisfying, that the right person was in jail where he needs to be so that this can never happen to someone else again.
Though Jose was ultimately found guilty, Alicia's family thinks he got off too easily.
My sister got her justice, but I didn't feel that was enough. He should rot in hell. I think the son of a bitch should be dead.
She's gone. She's not coming back. She'll never get married. She'll never have any children. Why do you basically have an option to get out of jail less than 35 years and have a normal life? I don't think it's fair.
In the years since her death, Alicia's friends and family have tried to move on, while still cherishing her memory and the heartbreaking legacy this aspiring poet left behind.
I knew that she was talented, but I'm just now discovering that my sister has a book that is almost thick as the Bible, and I have never saw any of these.
Going over the writings. And the things that she wrote about, she spoke a lot about God, and she felt like that everything happens for a reason, or God gives you these struggles to make you stronger. Wish she would have shared that with me. I miss my child. I miss her so much. There's just certain things once someone leaves, there's just certain things that you just can't give back.
A tragic attack outside a Detroit strip mall leaves a community grasping for answers.
He came up behind them and ordered them both to the vehicle.
He was pistol whipped. She was begging for her life, saying, "Please don't kill me. I'll do anything you want."
For almost 2 decades, the identity of this assailant would remain a mystery, while a life of power and privilege rose from the ashes of the tragedy.
What you had in the Detroit region was the ultimate power couple.
They were living the lifestyle of the rich and famous.
But underneath this polished veneer, a scandal was brewing, one fueled by greed and born of blood.
He had talked to his uncle a lot about wanting to kill people, wanting to do a lot of crazy things.
Everybody thinks we're really dying class. So the question becomes, after 20 years, why would these two come forward?
If they can't get you one way, they're going to come after another.
January 8th, 1982. The evening sun is setting in the upscale Detroit enclave of Southfield. Inside a Chinese restaurant at a local strip mall, a smattering of residents are enjoying dinner after a long work week. But what should be a relaxing Friday night is about to become a nightmare.
At approximately 8:30 p.m., a man staggered into the restaurant screaming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Help. Please help. Oh, my God. Please, I've been attacked.
And he tells them, my wife's been shot. I've just been robbed. He's been hit over the back of the head. It's at that point that workers in the restaurant, they call the authorities.
The patrons inside the restaurant call 911 and tend to the injured man. Moments later, first responders roll up on a Cadillac parked behind the building and make a horrifying discovery.
They see a young woman in the backseat of the car suffering from a gunshot wound to the head and to her face. She was basically barely alive at the time.
After EMS arrives, they take her to the closest hospital, which is Providence Hospital in Southfield. He's also taken to Providence Hospital because of his injuries as well.
Back at the restaurant, shell-shocked patrons identify the couple to police.
It's not the first time they'd ever been to eat there. They were customers there before.
Have you ever seen this person before?
Yeah, they're Thomas and Sharon Randolph.
Although the injured couple has been identified, the mystery around the incident is just beginning. Detectives are about to embark on a 19-year quest for truth, one with more plot twists than a Hitchcock film and more scandals than the most salacious soap opera, one that stars Thomas and Sharon Randolph.
It's just absolutely unbelievable, absolutely amazing how it all came together. All right.
Born in 1942 to a poor family in New York City, Thomas Randolph was a child of the streets.
Thomas Randolph grew up in Harlem. He was a juvenile delinquent, he was a high school dropout, and he had even done a period of time of incarceration in New York.
But the time he spent in juvenile detention had a profound impact on young Thomas, and as a teenager, he turned his life around.
He eventually went on to obtain his GED. He enlisted in the Army. He served his country in Vietnam.
Following his tour overseas, Thomas earned a scholarship and later a degree from Western Michigan University.
He was a smart guy. He went to school, but he wasn't just smart, he was very athletic. In fact, he ran track.
He honed in on his talents in being a track star and even rose to the level as to being an alternate on a 1968 Olympic track team. So this is a person who has a lot of talent. This is a person who has a lot of strength. This is a person who is very intelligent to have done the things that he's done.
He had pulled himself up by his bootstraps and he achieved success.
The sky seemed to be the limit for Thomas, but when it came to love, he endured more than his fair share of heartache.
Thomas married twice. Both ended quickly in divorce. The only silver lining was that the relationships produced 2 sons that he dearly loved.
After 2 failed marriages, this 33-year-old single father was hardly looking for another long-term relationship. But sometimes when you least expect it, love finds you.
Mr. Randolph is there at a restaurant, and in walks Sharon.
I have 2 of those.
When they first met, it was love at first sight.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Sharon Beatty was 12 years Thomas's junior and a patrol officer with the Detroit Police Department. She had good looks and a sexy swagger that immediately caught Thomas's eye.
So, I don't mean to be too forward, but are you doing anything this weekend? I would love to take you out, get to know you a little better.
I would love that.
Yeah?
Yeah, let me give you my number.
Thomas and Sharon found themselves very much attracted to each other. It was just a perfect match.
Oh, God. How'd I get so lucky?
They started dating, and their physical connection was intense. It was a passionate relationship.
But Sharon and Thomas shared much more than just sexual chemistry.
Both had a rough past, but they managed to pick themselves up and overcome huge obstacles.
Sharon had children from previous relationship. Thomas also had children from prior relationships.
They're both doing positive things. They're both working towards goals, and there lies the promise of being able to build something together.
In 1979, Sharon and Thomas tied the knot.
It was just ultimately what people viewed as the perfect relationship.
They were a very attractive couple and seemed to be very much in love with one another.
He went on to get his graduate degree. By the 1980s, he was working with Wayne County Community College as a professor, which can't be discounted. At that time, you didn't have a lot of African-American professors or teachers, but he was there helping young people out.
As husband and wife, the Randolphs made an impressive team. even after department budget cuts forced Sharon out as a Detroit police officer.
She was working security at the time. Most of the people that described her as a nice, beautiful woman, and somebody who was gregarious and always very friendly, and somebody that generally was a well-liked and loved person.
They really had it all together.
But on a cold winter night in 1982, fate dealt Thomas and Sharon a deadly blow.
Their dinner date turned into a nightmare after someone attacked them outside of a Chinese restaurant in Southfield, Michigan.
Now, inside a local emergency room, doctors are fighting to save Sharon's life, while her injured husband struggles to maintain his composure.
She was shot 2 times. Thomas, on the other hand, they took him in. He had injuries to his head. He was hit over the head.
Thomas could barely contain his emotions. He was so distraught. Was she okay? Was she going to survive?
Oh, Doc. Doc, please tell me you have good news.
I'm so sorry. She did not make it.
She had suffered 2 gunshot wounds to the head that really she could not survive.
Sharon was pronounced dead approximately an hour after the incident occurred.
Sharon, no. Oh, God.
Although Thomas appears truly devastated as both a victim and eyewitness to this deadly attack, he may hold the key to unlocking the case. But when this grieving husband finally reveals what happened, it will set off alarm bells all across suburban Detroit.
You cannot believe that all of this occurred.
People were appalled. People were looking for answers.
The lives of Detroit couple Thomas and Sharon Randolph have taken a shocking turn after they're violently attacked outside an area restaurant.
She had been shot and was pronounced dead after about an hour.
Thomas was brutally beaten on the head, but survived.
No one seems more devastated by Sharon's death than Thomas. Although he's still recovering from a head injury sustained in the attack, Thomas is eager to tell police what he knows.
Mr. Randolph, could you please tell us what happened?
My wife and I, we had just got done eating at the restaurant. We were going back to our car. It was probably 8 o'clock or so.
They were parked in the rear of the restaurant, and it was in a secluded area.
There's 2 entrances into the mall. There's an east and a west side entrance. Thomas had told the officers that he parked behind the strip mall and used that east entrance, and they were immediately approached by an individual that he never saw.
Get in the car.
Hey. Get
in the car!
All right, hey.
Get in the car! Shut up.
That person forced him into the car at gunpoint and told him not to turn around, or he was going to get shot. And then that person got into the backseat of the Cadillac and pulled Sharon in.
This person demanded his money and his wallet from him of $310.
Money, now.
After getting those items, this person began to beat Mr. Randolph, essentially pistol whipping him.
He was struck in the back of the head and lost consciousness, or was semi-conscious, and during that time heard what he believed were firecrackers sounding.
Oh no, Sharon, no. Ultimately, he wakes up. He sees, oh my God, my wife's been shot. He runs back into the restaurant for help.
Detectives pressed Thomas for any information that could help them ID the suspect.
I didn't get a good look, but I could tell by the way he grabbed me, he was as tall as me, maybe a little taller. And he spoke with an accent.
What kind of accent?
Middle Eastern accent, maybe.
He described the accent as what he believed to be Middle Eastern.
Did you get a chance to identify him?
No, it just happened so fast.
While police begin compiling a list of possible perps, detectives head to the scene of the shooting, where CSIs are already hard at work.
That's all we got.
At the side of Randolph's Cadillac, police locate what seems to be evidence.
There were items that appeared to have been Mrs. Randolph's.
They saw specific blood spatter marks on the rear driver door. There was a pool of blood in the rear driver's side of the vehicle.
But other than the blood and a few personal items, detectives don't have much to go on.
They were met with no physical evidence other than blood spatter.
Because the restaurant parking lot was in a relatively isolated area from the rest of the strip mall, there weren't any eyewitnesses to the crime.
With the identity of Thomas and Sharon's attacker still a mystery, investigators check up on the status of their team's perp search.
Did you guys do a records check?
It's a typical way that you would investigate crimes is to see if anybody's been recently released on parole that was in prison for robbery or murder.
Yeah, they checked through all the city records. No one really seems to fit the description.
At that time, they did pursue several leads to other crimes that occurred in other cities that described a suspect that was not a 100% fit, but the person could have been Middle Eastern.
Detroit has a sizable Middle Eastern population, so this really doesn't narrow down the list of possible suspects. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack.
But as investigators try to figure out what to do with this information, they can't shake one nagging detail about the crime.
Doesn't sound like a robbery to me.
When an armed robbery typically occurs, then the person is only interested in what they can get from you, that being money and or property.
You might hit them with a weapon, but you usually don't take the time to shoot a second party.
You have a man and a woman, a husband and a wife that are together. You have pretty much disabled the man by beating him to the point of unconsciousness. He's no longer a threat. So why is she shot? So why is it that Sharon Randolph had to die? Why did she pose a threat to the would-be robber?
It's that line of questioning that's about to turn up a shocking new lead and a surprising motive behind the murder.
This is literally made for TV information.
I'm committed to him forever.
The January 1982 murder of former Detroit police officer Sharon Randolph has investigators in nearby Southfield on the hunt for a killer.
Mr. Randolph alleged that there was a robbery that took place and he was pistol whipped and his wife had been shot.
As he was falling out of consciousness, he heard someone with an accent, and he indicated that it was a Middle Eastern accent.
The Middle Eastern population in Detroit is pretty large, so this doesn't narrow it down very much. But since Sharon was a former police officer, and once an officer, always an officer, authorities were that much more determined to find Sharon's killer.
Detectives start by interviewing Sharon's friends and former colleagues, hoping to hone in on a possible suspect. Instead, this canvassing effort turns up some surprising and far more personal information.
This wasn't the perfect marriage. There were problems.
Sharon Randolph had been involved in an extramarital affair with a coworker, a police officer.
Once it was discovered that Sharon Randolph had been involved in an adulterous relationship, that kind of shed new light onto the investigation. It shifted from a classic armed robbery gone wrong to possibly this could have been an act of violence by a jealous lover.
Maybe what Thomas Randolph thought was a robbery gone wrong was just staged to look that way. Maybe Sharon's lover was trying to tell her that if he couldn't have her all to himself, then no one could have her.
Do you guys know who she was having an affair with?
Sharon's former colleagues identified Michael Radford as the man that she was having an affair with. He was still on the force, so the police went to the precinct where he was stationed and questioned him.
This was a very uncomfortable situation. Law enforcement officers having to question one of their own about another officer's murder. But it had to be done.
Through our investigation, we did find out that you and Sharon Randolph were having an affair.
That's true. I was seeing Sharon. I don't deny that at all.
According to Michael, the affair began 3 to 4 years prior when he and Sharon were working for the same police precinct.
Apparently, Sharon and Michael's sexual chemistry was explosive. They would have these passionate sexual rendezvous at Michael's apartment, and then Sharon would go back home to her husband.
In fact, Michael alleged Sharon only married Thomas because Sharon couldn't get Michael to commit completely to her. So it seems all along, Sharon's heart may have belonged to another man.
And can you tell me, when was the last time you two saw each other?
Saw Sharon 2 days ago.
2 days ago?
Yeah.
And you didn't mind that she was still with her husband?
Wait a minute. You don't think I had anything to do with this?
Mr. Radford, I'm just asking the questions.
You can check my alibi.
What they learned was that, well, in fact, he was on another side of the city working. There was no way possible he committed this murder.
But before detectives end their interview, Michael Radford suggests they might want to look into another man with reason to murder Sharon.
I might want to look into Thomas.
According to Michael, less than a year prior to Sharon's murder, Thomas discovered what his wife had been doing behind closed doors.
Thomas Randolph discovered that his wife was having an affair.
He didn't handle it well.
Michael said Thomas called him up. He was furious and ordered him to stay away from his wife.
This new information forces investigators to consider whether Thomas Randolph might have played a hand in his wife's killing.
In light of Michael Radford's allegations, detectives decide to bring Thomas in for another round of questioning.
How would anybody feel if their wife was having an affair? I was angry, but we were really, really working to try to make things right.
Detectives aren't 100% sure they buy Thomas Randolph's story, so they do more digging. And what they discover raises eyebrows.
Thomas took out insurance policies on his wife just 3 or 4 months prior to the murder.
While the timing is certainly suspicious, a closer examination of the insurance policies reveals there's more to the story.
It wasn't just Thomas taking out policies on Sharon. Sharon also took policies out on Thomas as well. It seemed to be a decision they both made.
Post-murder, it then looks suspicious. But before she was murdered, the fact that they both took out insurance policies on each other would indicate nothing more than that they wanted to make sure that the survivor was covered if something should happen to one or the other of them.
To police, this insurance angle just doesn't seem like the proper motive.
On top of that, there is zero physical or circumstantial evidence linking Thomas Randolph to his wife's murder.
There were no surveillance cameras. There were no cell phones. There were no text messages. There was no email. A lot of the things that we rely on now.
They didn't have a lot to go on.
There's also the fact that Thomas himself was attacked. Who hits himself on the head that viciously? So it wasn't really adding up that Thomas could have been involved with his wife's murder.
Having all but ruled out Thomas as a suspect, detectives turn their attention back to tracking down the unknown Middle Eastern man he identified as the assailant.
The police were able to track down and talk to a number of men of Middle Eastern descent who could have hypothetically been connected to the crime, but no one fit the bill.
Either the men turned out not to have discernible accents, were the wrong height, or had strong alibis.
Detectives were frustrated and family and friends were disappointed, but there was really nothing anyone could do.
There were no other leads for the investigators to follow. This case went cold.
As for Thomas Randolph, his love for Sharon seems to bear out. In the months that follow, he does his best to pick up the pieces of his life and tackles the role of raising his and Sharon's children by himself. That October, Thomas wins a custody battle against the father of Sharon's 2 surviving children.
He was able to gain custody of those 2 children over the biological fathers.
The courts thought he would be the best for the children.
He was really being a decent guy and he wanted to take care of the kids.
Thomas's decision to take care of his deceased wife's children looks like the act of a loving man. But later that year, another development leaves Sharon's closest friends and family stunned.
His wife is murdered in January 1982, but Thomas was remarried about 10 months later when he married Marie Jackson Randolph.
They were shocked that he remarried so quickly.
However, to Thomas's work colleagues, his union with Marie makes sense.
They ran in similar circles. They both worked at Wayne County Community College where they initially met.
She could talk to Thomas about his loss because she herself lost her children in a house fire and could share in tragedy.
In November of 1983, roughly a year after Thomas and Marie's wedding, Thomas's insurance company makes good on Sharon's life insurance policy.
He was successful in receiving over $200,000.
From then on, Thomas and Marie focus on building a new life together, and what an extraordinary one it is.
After getting his insurance proceeds, he invests in Marie's business.
Marie opened the first 24-hour daycare anywhere in the United States.
Ultimately, her business grows from just a handful of employees to well over 500 employees that she employed citywide.
He eventually became an attorney in the state of Michigan and obtained a PhD. They had a residence in the prominent Palmer Woods neighborhood of the city of Detroit, which has very lavish homes. Some of the homes there are extremely large. It's a place that you want to live and when you're a successful person. They drove expensive, flashy vehicles.
Thomas had an affinity towards Rolls Royces. And Marie, on the other hand, she loved her fur coats.
It was rumored that she had a whole room in her house that was outfitted just to have climate and control and the proper humidity to store the many fur coats that she had.
Very successful power couple.
Driving around in Rolls Royces, over 200 fur coats taking trips to the Caribbean, paying for employees to go on these lavish trips, family to go on these lavish trips. They were living the lifestyle of the rich and famous.
In the upper echelons of Detroit society of the time, no one was more admired than the Randolphs.
Marie received an award by a major cosmetic company for being the Woman of the Year for her work in providing daycare facilities for women, which gave them greater opportunity to advance in their careers.
Thomas Randolph was this wonderful attorney who was working at a community college helping kids.
They were two people that were considered to have raised themselves from lower middle class families and beat the odds.
But in 1999, nearly 2 decades after the tragic death of Sharon, a scandal would erupt that would engulf the Randolphs, triggering a fall from grace of epic proportions.
Your typical Greek tragedy, family comes crashing down.
Everything that Thomas Randolph has worked for years to attain is all about to explode right before his eyes.
Following the tragic slaying of his wife Sharon at the hands of an unknown assailant in 1982, Thomas Randolph managed to rebuild his life, remarrying an entrepreneur named Marie Jackson. Together, Thomas and Marie have climbed the highest rungs of the Detroit social ladder, attaining a level of wealth, power, and privilege that few could imagine.
They have this lavish lifestyle. Movie stars would envy.
They lived in a very affluent neighborhood in Detroit. So this is the Palmer Woods area in a mansion that's almost 5,000 square feet.
They were a power couple. They were movers and shakers in Detroit.
But in the summer of 1999, Thomas and Marie's storybook life together begins to crumble.
Turns out Marie Jackson Randolph wasn't quite the loving employer that she was purported to be. There were some employees that didn't like the way that she treated them, and they turned on her in a major way.
Disgruntled employees reported Marie Jackson Randolph to the IRS, and there was an investigation.
She was accused of fraudulently taking money from the U.S. government for meals to her daycare center that weren't being provided.
She faces 63 counts of fraud, conspiracy by the federal government.
And although Thomas is never implicated in his wife's crimes, following Marie's trial, the couple's once glamorous life lies in ruins.
Marie is found guilty. She's fined $1.1 million. She has to pay restitution for $13 million. But the worst part is she has to serve 9 years in prison. So in 1999, Marie is off to prison and Thomas is alone again.
What a terrible thing for this poor guy. His first wife's murdered, and his second wife is out doing these crazy things.
But the unraveling of Thomas and Marie's dream life is just beginning.
At the same time, a cold case unit with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office coincidentally reopens the Sharon Randolph murder file.
They had opened a new cold case department and assigned a new detective to the case. His name was Tom Litoraki.
I was assigned to investigate cold cases that were in need of updating to current standards. Law enforcement's always changing. Technology's always changing. Those things need to be brought up as they change, or new techniques become available to deal with evidence that couldn't be processed when a crime had occurred many years ago. And people's attitudes change, and people change, and information that they may want to share now that they didn't want to share. So all those things need to be looked at again.
It takes a very unusual police officer to work cold cases because you're plowing through things that have already been said and you're looking at them differently. And not only that, you're looking at things that other police officers may have overlooked. Tom is very intelligent, he's very smart, works at a very high RPM, and has so much pride in his work. That's one of the reasons he was assigned to this unit. He believes in what he's doing.
I got to the point where myself and the team that I was working with at the time chased every possible scenario, every possible lead, every possible person that could have had any information about what happened.
But the problem is people move, they die, they disappear, and leads go cold.
Just when it seems Litoraki's work on the Sharon Randolph case will be for naught, his investigation takes a surprising turn.
2 witnesses stepped forward.
They actually made a phone call to the Detroit Police Department, where they were living at the time, and said, we have information about a murder that occurred.
The Randolph case?
David Hutzel and Sarah Norwood revealed that their uncle, Sanarel Shannon, had actually pulled the trigger that killed Sharon Randolph.
Yeah, send him down. I'll talk to him.
This is completely new information to Little Rocky and his team. The name Sanarel Shannon had never even come up in the first investigation, and this could be the lead that breaks this case wide open.
On December 2nd, 1999, David Hutzel and Sarah Norwood come down to the station for an interview. Detective Literaki's first question for them is an obvious one.
After 20 years, why would these two come forward?
He had to be very suspicious about their motives.
According to David and Sarah, an overwhelming fear of their uncle Sanarel Shannon had left them paralyzed for years.
David and Sarah describe him as having some type of mental disorder or mental issue that went untreated throughout his whole life.
They all lived together, which to call that home dysfunctional would be a horrible understatement.
They described to me that he always displayed bizarre behavior and that he's always been very violent, has been violent with his parents and threatened neighbors, other members of his family, just out of the blue.
He talked a lot about wanting to kill people, wanting to do a lot of crazy things. It was a place that was ruled by Sanarel Shannon's violence and his threats. And he kept everybody in that house right under his control. Nobody made a move in that house without him. Nobody did anything without his permission. I mean, that was genuine fear that the people in that home had with him.
You came forward because you're not afraid anymore?
No, that's not it at all.
It was my idea to come forward.
The niece, Sarah Norwood, she says, I learned recently that I had cancer, and the doctors tell me I have 6 to 8 months to live. I've been living with this guilt for almost 20 years. I can't bear it anymore.
But to fully come clean, Sarah and David will have to reveal another closely guarded secret.
They alleged that Sanarel Shannon conspired with someone else to commit the murder of Sharon Randolph.
Not only did they conspire to kill her, they actually carried it out.
For 18 long years, the shooting death of 26-year-old Sharon Randolph has remained unsolved. But now, in December of 1999, 2 longtime residents of Detroit have come forward with information that could light a fire under this cold case.
David Hutzel and Sarah Norwood came to the police and revealed that their uncle, Sanarel Shannon, had been involved in this horrific crime.
David told me the night that Sharon was murdered, Sanarel asked David to drive him to the Harvard Road Shopping Mall in Southfield. Sanarel instructed him to park behind the building.
Wait here, don't go anywhere, don't do anything. And his uncle jumped out.
David didn't question Sanarel because he knew throughout his life what happens when you question Sanarel. Sanarel becomes violent. You don't question Sanarel when he tells you to do something. You just do it. David had learned this.
David says a short while later, he saw an African-American woman exit the mall, accompanied by a man David immediately recognized.
That was Thomas Randolph. He's a professor at the school that my uncle went to.
David described to me that Sanarel idolized Thomas and his stature in the community and wanted to be more than a student to Thomas and eventually became somewhat of a mentor relationship.
Which, according to David, made what his uncle did next all the more shocking.
He sees his uncle pull a gun and rush towards Thomas Randolph and the woman beside him as they were about to get into their car.
He came up behind them and ordered them both to the vehicle.
Hey, get in the car! All right. Sharon Randolph was begging for her life at the time, saying, please don't kill me, I'll do anything you want.
He proceeded to shoot Sharon Randolph in the temple once.
David said he was yelling, "Die, bitch, die."
And then he shot her again through the chin, and it went through the top of her head.
But what David claims happened next is even more chilling.
David overheard Thomas instructing Sanarel to make this look good and to hit him so that he would have some type of injury to make the robbery more believable.
Hit me in the head, man. Hit me in the head, man.
That's when Sanarel hit him over the head with the gun. Try to create some kind of bruise on his head.
It's clear that it was a staged robbery and that he was trying to cover up his involvement.
David says at that point, Thomas Randolph limped off toward the restaurant to establish his alibi, while his uncle Sanarel jumped back in their car.
What the hell was that? David said that his uncle put the gun to his head and said, get out of here and don't burn any rubber or I'll blow your head off.
Hey, slow.
He was so nervous that he did screech the wheels a little bit. His uncle told him, don't do that again or you'll be done.
When Sarah Norwood is questioned, her story picks up where David Hutzel's left off.
Sarah was not present for the murder, but was present at the home. When they returned, Sarah described that Santarell had an extreme adrenaline rush going on. He was very animated, yelling about what they had just done.
Oh my God, did you see that? Did you see that?
What happened?
Will you hush?
He had blood on his chest, and he disposed of his clothing in a garbage bag.
Subsequent to that, she also observed him allegedly throw the gun in the Detroit River that was supposedly used to kill Mrs. Randolph.
Why do you think that your uncle would have committed this crime?
Mr. Randolph hired him to do it.
She overheard conversations where her uncle was demanding money and that Thomas Randolph was indicating that he was waiting on insurance proceeds to be paid. Following this incident, Thomas Randolph brought money to her uncle in a briefcase. It was approximately $40,000.
But this was apparently no one-time payout. According to Sarah, Thomas Randolph remained in close contact with her uncle over the next several years.
Randolph was going and giving him money, basically to keep quiet. He was always worried Santarell Shannon was going to say something.
And Thomas allegedly continued paying that hush money until his wife Marie was arrested in 1999.
Santarell was essentially homeless, living in a neighbor's garage and constantly asking Thomas for money, who is now in financial peril because his wife has been arrested for defrauding the government. Thomas couldn't handle it, so he went and bought him a one-way bus ticket to Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Although David and Sarah's story sounds credible, Detective Litoraki needs to be sure they're telling the truth.
I arranged for a polygraph for David on the information that he provided about the murder of Sharon, and David passed that polygraph without any problem at all.
The drawback is you can't use that in a court of law. But it can give you what? Probable cause to start putting the pieces together based upon what this person said.
Also, investigators found a former landlord of Santarell Shannon's who claims to have witnessed Thomas Randolph visiting Shannon many times and giving him the ticket to Mississippi.
Even though David and Sarah seem to be telling the truth, investigators still can't figure out Thomas Randolph's motive. After all, both Thomas and Sharon had taken out life insurance policies on each other shortly after they married.
So they dig into Randolph's past, and a review of his financial situation in 1982 suggests a possible motive for murder.
He was broke. His credit cards were maxed out. His wife had been laid off from her job. They had a bunch of kids. He wasn't managing it financially well. Then he took out several life insurance policies.
And what he did to Sharon's kids the year after he received the $200,000 payout emphasized just how far he was willing to go to strike it rich.
When he gets the money, all of a sudden, he relinquishes custody without any explanation, just gives them away.
For Detective Litoraki, it's enough evidence to seek arrest warrants against Thomas Randolph and Santarell Shannon.
So I put together a plan that involved an arrest of both subjects on the same day at the same time, so that one person couldn't get to the other person and tell them, hey, I just been arrested.
On July 20th, 2000, Detective Litoraki flies to Mississippi to apprehend Santarell Shannon.
Santarell Shannon.
Yeah.
You are under arrest for the murder of Sharon Randolph.
He was working as a painter on a paint crew, and he was at a office building that they were building in the area down there in Hattiesburg painting. And me and my team went to him and arrested him.
Simultaneously, officers pay Thomas Randolph a visit at his prestigious Detroit law office.
I'd like to ask you if you recognize anybody in any of these pictures.
We made a fake appointment saying that we needed some legal advice and told him we're looking into an old case. The investigator was able to show Thomas Randolph a photographic lineup that contains a photograph of Santarell from 1981. The investigator said that somebody knew the person that shot your wife and his picture's in these pictures.
No, I don't know those guys. And I actually have a meeting that I need to get to, so you all just
You won't be going anywhere, sir. You're under arrest.
I felt like a proud papa. I just smiled and said, another one bites the dust.
That day, Detective Litoraki attempts to question Santarell at the Hattiesburg Police Department.
Santarell told me he'd write a statement, and I gave him a piece of paper, and he started to write a few words on a piece of paper, and then he crumbled it up and threw it away.
But Santarell Shannon does give Detective Litoraki permission to search his room. There, he uncovers more concrete proof of the long-standing relationship between Shannon and Randolph.
I found several letters addressed to Santarell from Thomas Randolph that had been mailed to him at this boarding house recently, within the year, that contained money orders. Thomas Randolph, in his own pen, was addressing envelopes, getting money orders, and still sending money to Santarell in Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
News of Thomas Randolph's arrest spreads like wildfire across Detroit.
His wife was convicted of fraud, and now this? To everyone, it was shocking to even believe that this prominent figure and philanthropist could be involved in a murder-for-hire plot.
But the people of Detroit haven't seen anything yet, because when it goes to trial, this 20-year-old case will set the city ablaze and reveal another tawdry layer to this already bizarre story.
This call is from a federal crazy, so everybody thinks we're really Bonnie and Clyde. Ask him, does he love me?
For prominent Detroit couple Thomas and Marie Randolph, their fall from wealth and power has been stunning indeed.
Marie is serving a 9-year sentence for fraud, while her husband Thomas is now implicated in a murder-for-hire plot in the death of his previous wife, Sharon.
Thomas and his former student, Santarell Shannon, were alleged to have orchestrated and carried out the 1982 murder of Thomas's third wife, Sharon.
The arrest of one of the city's most prominent citizens is front-page news.
Media reported on their problems, their issues.
The media was portraying Thomas and Marie to be these criminals with this vast illicit empire.
Ironically, in the wake of his arrest, they talked by phone from prison and jail with Thomas's son as their mediator. Their bond seems to be strengthened by their legal problems.
They are painting us out to be a black Bonnie and Clyde. It's terrible, but we'll live through it.
At this point, Thomas and Marie have been accused of terrible things. But through it all, they continue to support each other.
Tell him I love and worship him.
On October 8, 2001, Thomas Randolph and his alleged hitman and co-conspirator Santarell Shannon are led into a Michigan courtroom.
Both defendants were going to stand trial together, but their cases were going to be considered by 2 separate juries.
It just seemed very strange. It's 2 people that would not normally be friends. Mr. Shannon, he looked, I don't know how to say it. I wouldn't want to meet him. He was kind of scary. Whereas Mr. Randolph looked very well put together. There was never anything askew. He was always pressed. He did look like one of the attorneys.
In their opening statements, prosecutors lay out Thomas's motive for orchestrating the murder of his then-wife, Sharon Randolph.
Thomas Randolph was in financial dire straits in 1982. He needed cash. He knew that there was an insurance policy on his wife. Not to mention, he knew that she was having an affair. So prosecutors say that Thomas had his wife killed in a fake robbery in order to cash in on that policy.
I think he made almost an actuarial decision that it would be better to kill her and go on himself without her rather than get a divorce.
The prosecution's case turns heavily on the testimony of the state's 2-star witnesses, Santarell Shannon's niece and nephew, David Hutzel, and Sarah Norwood.
David Hutzel takes the stand and claims that he witnessed the murder. He said he saw his uncle shoot Sharon in the head while she fled for her life, and then he hit Thomas over the head with his pistol to make it look like a robbery.
The silence in the courtroom when that was going on was deafening. It was that damning, that intense.
When Sarah took the stand, she testified about seeing her uncle come home that night with blood on his clothes and how he got rid of those clothes along with the murder weapon. She later testified that she also saw Thomas Randolph giving her uncle a bag of money.
But when it's the defense's turn to cross-examine, they begin poking holes in Sarah and David's seemingly airtight testimony.
The defense pointed out that David Hutzel gave conflicting statements about whether or not he assisted his uncle in disposing of the clothing, and he gave conflicting information with respect to the timeline of the term of events.
And perhaps the most controversial claim by defense attorneys is the suggestion that Sarah Norwood's cancer battle may not have been the catalyst that prompted her and David to come forward to authorities after nearly 2 decades of silence.
They may have had a bone to pick with their uncle.
Sarah Norwood, she was involved in an estate, a probate matter against her uncle. They alleged that none of this occurred, that her sole motive was to get back at Mr. Shannon.
Prosecutors counter by pointing out that the physical evidence supports David Hutzel's version of events, not Thomas Randolph's.
Thomas Randolph's account of the events on the day in question was that Sharon was shot from inside the car. However, David testified that he saw Sharon being shot from outside the car with the back door open. Roger Fleming, the CSI tech who collected the blood splatter evidence, stated that the evidence corroborated David's version and not Thomas's.
He talked about that high-impact spanner on the door. If it had occurred, as they were saying, and she were in the back seat of the car when she had gotten shot, then you wouldn't have seen any of that blood spatter on the door because her body would have blocked all that. And the significance of that was that's exactly how David Hutzel described the shooting as taking place.
After nearly 7 weeks of grueling testimony, the two juries adjourned for deliberation.
No one was sure which way it would go. A lot of it turned on whether people believed David Hutzel and Sarah Norwood were telling the truth.
3 days later, on November 27, 2001, both panels returned with a verdict.
Thomas Randolph was found guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. But the jury for Santarell Shannon found him not guilty on first-degree premeditated murder. Many people were confused by the fact that the mastermind of this particular murder, Thomas Randolph, was convicted, but that the alleged triggerman was acquitted.
I still don't know how they found him innocent. It was very confusing.
When I spoke to Santarell Shannon's juries, they said, yeah, we thought he did it, but we just thought kind of with the age and the time, we weren't sure beyond a reasonable doubt. So that's why we acquitted him.
We have a legal system that many believe is the best in the world, but it isn't without flaws. There were 2 defendants, 2 juries, and the same set of facts, yet there were 2 different verdicts. Sharon and Thomas's families were distraught and confused as to how the juries could convict one without the other.
The judge sentences Thomas Randolph to life in prison. For those in attendance, it's a bittersweet victory.
When I look back on all these facts, that's what kind of sticks out the most. When you put all those puzzle pieces together, this was a well thought out, laid out plan by Thomas Randolph to have his wife killed, and he got away with it for almost 20 years.
Thomas and Sharon were an up-and-coming couple who had their fair share of struggles, but Thomas wanted money, Thomas wanted power, Thomas wanted it all.
Thomas Randolph's greed for money and power drove him to act in the most heinous and unimaginable way, much like his 4th wife. In the end, their deception landed them in the same place.
This was someone who was highly successful, highly regarded in the community. The community had a tough time putting their hands around this case, but for the family of Sharon Randolph, it was the ultimate closure. They saw that Thomas Randolph was in prison behind bars, never to get out again.